I mean, you can get started for next to nothing. Recently, I had somebody ask me, I was talking to somebody about, what they were wanting to do with business, and like, well, how much money is it going to take me if I start an internet business? I mean, I don't have a whole lot of money to get started. And I could tell he was, fully expecting me to come back with an answer like, oh, $5,000 to $10,000, something like that. You go to start a franchise. I mean, I think you've looked into this before, Sterling, right? It's like tens of thousands of dollars, right? To start, to buy yourself a franchise.
Yeah, I looked into a Jamba Juice that was already up and running, and I can't remember. I think it was somewhere around 40,000 they wanted down, and then I'd have to pay monthly from the income for a certain amount of time, and I mean, that was a lot of money up front, and compared to what we're talking about is that's like insanity. Plus, the return on that Jamba Juice, that particular one that I looked at, after everything was about $100,000 a year, and you basically had to work it. You had to basically manage it, or part of that $100,000 would go to a manager. So, compared to what we do, that's insanity. I'm so glad I didn't have the money. Actually, that was part of it. I couldn't get that kind of money together, so I ended up not doing it. Plus, I was like, oh, I'm going to make less than I made at the time to go work for, as a manager at Jamba Juice, even though it was my own.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, you need bricks and mortar place where you've got, if you've got a storefront, if you've got inventory, I mean, these are all things that take money and production costs and this and that and the other. But as we've talked with internet business, those things are minimal because you don't have to have a physical storefront. In fact, you can sell information, which isn't even a, physical inventory or something you have to make. It's not like you have to go and have 2,000 units and pay in advance for whatever your product is and have those things prototyped out and created. That's going to be a cost if you're doing something like that. In an information business, you can sit down and create an ebook and an audio course or whatever and have that thing up and selling without production costs whatsoever. I mean, it's so minimal to sit down and record something like we are doing right now. So, my answer to this guy that asked me that, I was like, well, when I added it up, I said, okay, well, you've basically got website hosting, which for your first year is going to be less than $100 if you pay up front. In fact, recently when I looked, it was like half off, and it was like $50 or something, or $45, something like that. So that's next to nothing
and that was for a whole year.
For a whole year, yeah. And then, we tell everybody, well, you should get email list manager from the start. You need to start building your list right away. It needs to be a dependable list manager. You should do that right. So that is worth putting money out from the start, but that's only $20 a month. So, if you were to start it today, you could go to our suggested web host, get a year of hosting for less than $50, and then it's $20 a month, and that's it. He's off and going. WordPress is free. There's a lot of free WordPress templates out there. If he does need a microphone to record his content, then we can, there's microphones and headsets for $30-$40 if you need to, or if you want something a little nicer, even for $80, you can get a microphone. So we're talking a couple $100 here rather than $5,000 to $10,000 or $40,000 like a lot of businesses would require, or maybe more. So minimal startup costs is obviously, in a time when there's a money crunch, you want to start the kind of business where it takes very little money to get started. Well, what goes along with that is time. I mean, getting your product to the market, getting your business up and going so you can see right away whether or not it's worth the time and money you're putting into it. I mean, time's going to be the biggest thing up front because it's so little money. It's just going to be a matter of you putting some time into getting this thing up and going. Well, you don't want to have to wait a year or two to find out if it's even profitable. I mean, so many businesses, that is their business plan. I mean, look at all these Web 2.0 companies like Twitter and stuff, and they're doing successfully, and they might get their big buyout one of these days, but they're not making money yet. They've been running for over 2 years, and they still don't have a profit plan. Now, that's one way to do business, but obviously there's all kinds of investment and millions of dollars that have had to go in there to keep their staff going and to hire people and keep it growing to the point of hopefully having a big payoff one day. Whereas with an internet business like what we teach, we're talking in a matter of a few months, maybe even less, you can know, is this a viable thing? Is it going to make money for me? Rather than waiting, 2+ years to see if, on some high-end gamble, basically, of is this going to be the next idea that actually gets bought, or that we happen to figure out a way to make it profitable after 3 years of running this thing and sinking money into it. That is not at all the model we're going for. We're going for, let's get something up fast so you can know quickly if you've got the right idea, and if not, you move on to the next idea fast, and minimal time input, minimal money input to get you going as quickly as possible. That's what internet business in the style that we teach is all about.
Yeah, it actually reminds me of a story that I talk about in the academy quite a bit. A friend of mine, we both started little businesses on the side. Well, I went full time into it, but he still remained working while he did his. But we both started about the same time, and here's his way of doing it. Now, his is actually, to be fair, the more classic way of bringing a product to market. And I'm sure to him, he got his business degree and he did all this stuff. So he was taught to do the more classic model. And I'm sure he thought what I was doing was probably just a complete waste of time. But what he did was he saw this product that he wanted, which he decided to do a yoga mat, because his wife and friends and stuff were all very, very into yoga, and they didn't have this high-end yoga mat. So he decided that that's what he wanted to do. Now, later when I asked him about it, I said, what made you decide that? What kind of research did you do? And he said, well, my wife and her friends said that the yoga mats are really thin and they would like them to be better. That was it. Let's just say he had 8, his wife had 8 friends that said that. So he talked to 9 people to see that, if that was going to be a viable product. Then he spent time, effort, and money researching different places in China where they could actually make this. And then he finally actually put the money in and they started manufacturing these. Now, keep in mind, to this point, nobody had said they were going to buy these mats from him.
Yeah.
There was no testing. This is now we're a year into it or so, and he's put money, big money up front to manufacture these. So then he had to buy a huge bulk amount, have them shipped here, all of which he's paying for with no income, and they're in a warehouse or a storage unit, I think is what he said. And then he starts, he pays a lot of money to have a website done. Nothing like what we do now. I mean, the software and stuff that we suggest is free. And he paid, I believe he said $5,000 to have his site put up. And then he paid a PR person to put the mats in yoga magazines and in Good Housekeeping and all this stuff. And he was paying that woman $5,000 a month to do that PR.
Yikes.
All this money. This is insane amount of money. And when it was all said and done, I said, how many of these mats have you sold? And he says, very, very, very few. And I said, well, how many last month? And I think he said 7. 7. Even if they're $100, he's paying $5,000 just for the PR lady. He didn't even come close to breaking even. And that's like the classic way of doing it. Meanwhile, yeah. Probably the biggest thing I paid for ever was a seminar. And my first seminar that I paid for was $1,000. And I didn't even need to do that. Obviously, nowadays you can get online media. That was, I guess, 4 years ago or so when I first did that seminar. And back then, there wasn't the stuff that we have like in the academy where you can do video and audio and all that stuff. There wasn't that available. Isn't that crazy? Only 4 years ago, you couldn't stream video like that.
Yeah, where were we when you got started? Jeez.
Yeah, what's up with that?
If only we'd been around, you could have spent $97 instead of $1,000.
Yeah, well, and now you can put up an idea and check it ahead of time for almost nothing and know very, very quickly. We talk about that definitely in the academy, the very quick way to test an idea and see if it's going to work. And you could spend easily under $100 to test an idea for sure.